Welcome to the Butterfly Effect, brought to you by Moss Adams. I'm Chris Horner, and this is stage 10 of the 2021 Tour de France. Okay, it was a sleeper to begin with, but we got some action at the end. What I told you yesterday about Tadej Pogačar in terms of the stage being in the mountains, he's super strong, but as the mountains come down, we start going to the flatlands. The flatter it gets, the more even everybody becomes, because now all of a sudden the flatlander guys like Wout van Aert, Ineos, DSM, Bike Exchange, Bora Hansgrohe, those teams become much stronger now, and they can put Tadej Pogačar in trouble on stages like today. Stage begins, and two guys right off the front right away. Their gap gets no bigger than 4 minutes at any point in time during the stage. All the teams back there, they want a field sprint, and they're going to make it happen on today's stage. Now, there's a crash at 110 kilometers to go with Trek Segafredo, Mads Pedersen going down. Doesn't look like he's too badly hurt, and he'll get back in the bunch. Shortly after that, there comes the sprint points. Mark Cavendish doesn't even sprint. Sonny Colbrelli just blows the doors off of Michael Matthews and gains points for third place on the sprint. Two guys stayed up the road, so first and second points weren't available. Now, we get into the action with 65 kilometers to go. There's another crash. Most of the Ineos boys are down there. Richie Porte gets a cut on the elbow, but he will get back. Now the speeds are starting to pick up. With about 35 kilometers to go, Bike Exchange is on the front because we got a little bit of an uphill drag, and they're trying to see what kind of condition Mark Cavendish is in. The Gunic Quick-Step got him in a fabulous position. He's never off the front of the peloton and just in a solid place, so speeds start to slow back down. Under 30 kilometers to go, about 28 I believe, Sonny Colbrelli will flat, and now things are going smoking fast because they're getting a cross tailwind and the speeds are at maximum. Sonny Colbrelli's panicking a little bit until finally he gets back on the bike. He will get back up to the peloton, but he's going to waste 6-7 kilometers of energy back there trying to get himself to the front. After Sonny Colbrelli gets back on, you can imagine how difficult it would be for him to get to the front. Speeds are incredibly fast. We're talking 70 kilometers an hour. At these speeds, the bike really has a governor because you could only spin the crank so fast. And when you start doing 75 kilometers an hour, there's no more spin left in your legs. It doesn't matter if you have power or fitness, you can only spin the crank so hard. So when you're trying to make up gaps from the back to get yourself to the front, you just can't go any faster. It doesn't matter if there's a draft there or not. You're not going to be able to get up to the front because the cross tailwind back there is pushing them so hard that they're just going too fast, and it makes it difficult. So when you think about Sonny Colbrelli back there, imagine he's putting in big effort to get back up to be able to do the sprint. 16 kilometers to go, things get really dangerous. This is why I brought up on Beyond the Coverage yesterday the danger situation for Tadej Pogačar. 16 kilometers to go, there's a split, and it's solid guys up front. Jonas Vingegaard's up there, and I'm going to assume Enric Mas is up there from Movistar too, but Wout van Aert's on the front, and he's driving it hard for Jonas Vingegaard because they know race leader, yellow jersey wearer, Tadej Pogačar's off the back and lost in the second group. UAE Team Emirates, they got some help back there still for Tadej Pogačar, but it's not a full team. We're talking probably two riders. You see Tadej Pogačar moving up on the left side. He'll go to the front, latch onto his teammate's wheel, and you know his teammate is selling out with every bit of energy he has left. This is what I'm talking about with the number one rule. Okay, you guys all know it on the butterfly effect. You got to stay with your team until the last minute, until all their energy's done. And once their energy's done, you got to be smart enough as race leader, as Tadej Pogačar is race leader at this Tour de France, to know when to leave your teammate. His last teammate uses all the energy, and Tadej Pogačar's on the front of Chase Group 2, bridging the gap up to the front group of Wout van Aert up there pulling. Guys, Tadej Pogačar's on fabulous form. His technique, his tactics were absolutely perfect. Stay with your teammates as long as you can. He didn't have a whole team around him at this point in time because they had already ridden at the front before 16 kilometers. Now he used up his last two guys, and he jumps and bridges across. When he does, what I liked is he went across to the gap to the front leaders smooth. That allowed his teammate who did the pull just before he accelerated to be able to slot back on, and he'll use those teammates later into the finish. Tadej Pogačar did a fabulous job of closing this gap. Took him about 1 kilometer of effort with his UAE teammates' help, and then he bridged the gap and closed down any dangerous moves. That was super important and why I brought it up on yesterday's Beyond the Coverage. You saw it firsthand in today's race about how the level has changed now and become more even after we've gotten out of the mountains. So keep an eye out for tactics like that when you're watching in these later flatter stages or very small hilly stages in the Tour de France to come. With 1.5 kilometers to go, Deceuninck Quick-Step's sitting pretty. They got 3 on the front, and Mark Cavendish is the caboose. That's 4 Deceuninck Quick-Step with a 1.5 kilometers to go. First rider, Casper Asgreen, is just drilling it, and no one can get him off the front. He's on fantastic form and flying up the right side, under a K to go. Trek Segafredo is trying to take the lead away from Deceuninck Quick-Step, but their lead-out guy can't do it. Peter Sagan had the wheel of Mark Cavendish locked in until all the riders come over, and he'll get pushed off the wheel and lost in the melee behind. There's one team still left on the right. It's Albacete Phoenix trying to lead out Jasper Philipsen, and they got to get him into the 400-meter right turn to the finish. That won't happen. Jasper Philipsen will finally give up. He'll move left and start fighting with all of the other sprinters for Mark Cavendish's wheel. One thing I left out there, Jumbo-Visma had a great job with Wout van Aert's lead-out man in all the melee, found his way up through and dropped off Wout van Aert solidly onto Mark Cavendish's wheel as we go into the 400-meter right-hand turn. Nacer Bahane knows he's got to pass guys, so he's coming up the inside, and he's boxing there a little bit with Wout van Aert. When they come out of the second right turn with 300 meters to go, Deceuninck Quick-Steps, Mark Cavendish on the caboose. He's sitting pretty. He still has 2 riders in front of him, Ballerini and Morkov. And Ballerini's only been on the front for maybe 200 meters before we got into that turn. He's doing a fabulous job, comes out of that turn and just hits the afterburners all the way to the line. Morkov sitting second wheel, does 100 meters from about 250 to about 125. Mark Cavendish flies off his wheel in beautiful style and takes a 3rd win at this year's Tour de France. Behind, coming up on the wheel, Wout van Aert gave it a great effort to get second on the stage. But remember, Wout van Aert spent a lot of energy with 16 kilometers to go trying to split the group back there for Jonas Vingegaard when Cavendish was sitting pretty. I never saw Cavendish hitting the front really back there and spending any energy throughout this whole stage. Cav was absolutely amazing and never had to touch the front with the exception of that about 125 meters to the finish line. Jasper Philipsen did a great job, and Jasper Philipsen was coming way behind with 300 meters to go. He's still 1-2 guys behind Mark Cavendish on Wout van Aert's wheel. He'll salmon his way through the craziness, miss Morkov's wheel, and fight through Nacer Bahane's wheel to pop out on the right side of Cavendish. For 3 riders coming to the line, Mark Cavendish knows he has it won, so his arms are raised. The other 2 riders, Wout van Aert and Philipsen, are tossing their bike at the line to fight it out for podium positions. Wout gets second, Philipsen third. I want to talk about the butterfly effect with Mark Cavendish. He's got 3 stage wins at this year's Tour de France, and he's going to try to equal the legendary Eddie Merckx's record of 34. Now, a lot of things had to happen. We all know the story of the last 3-4 seasons of Mark Cavendish just being catastrophic, sick, illnesses, mental stuff, bad teams he's riding with that he just can't find the form with. Whatever the excuse is, he's close to being done with the sport of cycling. He continues to look for a team. In order to find a team with Deceuninck Quick-Step, he has to bring his own sponsor on that's paying his salary to ride with Deceuninck Quick-Step. Okay, that's crazy. Now he's on Deceuninck Quick-Step. The season's starting. He's not quite winning yet, but you can see in the Belgian races he's getting seconds and up there with the sprinters and fighting for stage wins. Tour of Turkey, he needs to win, right? We're getting close to the Tour de France now. When the Tour of Turkey starts, he wins multiple stages at the Tour of Turkey in great style and just shows how his instinct for sprinting is coming back. Now, Sam Bennett has to have a knee injury in order to get Cav racing again in Belgium, where he wins the last big Belgium semi-classic before the Tour de France starts. Sam Bennett's knee is still wrecked. Cav is put into the Tour de France. Now let's go to the Tour de France and talk about all the riders that started the Tour and how they needed to have bad races now where the competition's not even as high for Mark in order to win. He's riding fantastic, but still, Caleb Ewan crashes on stage 3 with Peter Sagan, eliminates himself. Tim Merlier doesn't make the time split. Arnold Dumas can't make the time split. He's gone. Mads Pedersen crashed today. We don't know how much that affected his form at the end of today's. Sonny Colbrelli flats with 28K to go on today's stage. That's going to cost him 6 kilometers, if not 7, of big effort getting back to the front. That takes another sprinter out. Peter Sagan crashed again with Caleb Ewan there on stage 3, so now his form's not so good. This is the perfect storm for Cavendish to win 3 stages here at this year's Tour de France. Let's throw in Wout van Aert. He had a surgery. He had the appendix removed before the Tour de France started. And then on today's stage, he's back there doing the pulling for Jonas Vingegaard at Jumbo-Visma's GC leader because Tadej Pogacar has been split off. I mean, the stars are absolutely amazing how they're aligned. The butterfly effect starting from all the years back, and of course, really starting to take effect when he signs with the Kunik Quick-Step and when he starts winning at Tour of Turkey, when Sam Bennett's knee is injured. Now you come in here, and I'll throw out one more big effect. Julian Alaphilippe, his own teammate, world champion, who was firing on all cylinders and was race leader at stage 1. Had Julian Alaphilippe kept that jersey on stage 2 when Mathieu van der Poel took it from him, if the Kunik Quick-Step still had that jersey on stage 2, how many of his lead-out guys that we saw today, legs might have been fatigued? Instead, Julian Alaphilippe, who we thought could race for GC at this year's Tour de France, loses the jersey, has a bad time trial, and now Mark Cavendish has all his fresh lead-out men, and he has Julian Alaphilippe working for him today. I mean, it is fantastic when you look at the math. We're talking about a NASA problem here to get Cavendish just absolutely demolishing the field here at the Tour de France. And now we got to believe it's realistic that we're going to see him equal the record with Eddie Merckx and probably take one more at this year's Tour de France, if not 2 after that. He could have 2 stage wins above Eddie Merckx's record when this year's Tour de France ends. That's the butterfly effect, and it's massive. One problem solved back there, finding a team last year with the Kunik Quick-Step and just steamrolling all the way up to 3 stage wins at this year's Tour de France. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys real soon on the butterfly effect.